Okay, so picture this. You're building a rocket to Mars. Would you, meticulously plan every single detail for years? Or would you launch a series of smaller test rockets to, learn and adapt along the way?
That's a great question, and it gets at the heart of what we're diving into today.
Exactly. It's all about navigating uncharted territory. And to guide us through this exciting world of uncertainty, we're going deep into The Lean Startup by Ries.
He really wrote the book on navigating uncertainty in the business world. His insights are more relevant now than ever, especially since that old playbook of rigid plans and build it and they will come just doesn't work in today's constantly changing world.
It's out with the old and in with the new, right? So let's get this straight. What exactly is a startup in this context? I have a feeling it's not just about beanbag chairs and ping pong tables.
Definitely not. Think of it less as a company size and more as a state of mind. It's about confronting the unknown, embracing experimentation, and having that audacity to build something new when the path ahead is anything but clear.
So are you saying this applies even if I'm not in a startup in the traditional sense of the word?
Absolutely. It's about applying that mindset to any challenge, big or small. Think about Amazon, for example. They started out selling books online. Not exactly revolutionary, right?
Right.
But it was their willingness to constantly experiment, to evolve, even as a massive corporation. That's the lean startup in action.
That's actually super empowering. It means anyone can be a change maker using these principles. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's break down what makes this approach so effective. I know we've got validated learning on the docket.
Ah, yes. Validated learning. It's a game changer. It's about falling in love with solving the problem for your customer, not falling in love with your initial solution. You have to constantly validate, test those assumptions before you invest tons of time and resources into an idea that might not be so great after all.
Okay, so less if you build it, they will come, and more like, let's figure out what it actually is before we go all in. Makes sense, but how do we put that into practice?
That's where the build, measure, learn loop comes in.
Okay, unpack that for me. It sounds intriguing.
It's a continuous cycle of creating, testing, and learning. You build a testable version, measure how people react to it, and then use that data to make smart decisions about your next steps. It's almost like having a conversation with your customers through their actions.
So less intuition and more concrete data.
Exactly. And this brings us to the minimum viable product, the MVP.
Ah, the MVP. Not to be confused with the most valuable player, although it can be just as impactful in the business world. But this isn't about cutting corners, right?
Not at all. It's about identifying the smallest possible thing you can build to test your riskiest assumptions, and to do it quickly and efficiently.
Got it. Maximum learning, minimum waste. Are there any real-world examples of a, killer MVP?
Oh, tons. Think Dropbox.
Uh-huh.
Their MVP wasn't even a functional product. It was a video demonstrating how it would work. That was enough to validate their idea and attract early adopters.
Wow, talk about high impact, low lift. So we've validated our learning, built our MVP, and we're starting to gather data. What happens when that data tells us we need to make a significant change?
That, my friend, is the art of the pivot.
And that's not a bad thing, right?
Not at all. It's about acknowledging that the path to success is rarely a straight line. It's about adapting, making changes based on what you learn along the way. Take Slack, for example.
The ubiquitous messaging platform.
Exactly. They started as an online game. But by paying attention to how people were actually using their platform, they were able to pivot and become the communication tool we know and love today.
It's amazing how these seemingly simple concepts can apply to such diverse businesses. Whether you're building an app or launching a new product line, these principles are universal.
They really are. And we've only just scratched the surface.
I know, right? This is already making me rethink everything I thought I knew about bringing ideas to life. And speaking of rethinking things, up next, we're diving into the often misunderstood world of data and analytics as they relate to the lean startup method. Get ready for some serious aha moments when we return. So we've been talking about building, measuring, learning, but let's get really specific. How do we actually measure what matters when we're talking about innovation? Because I have a feeling it's not just about tracking downloads or likes.
You're absolutely right. In the lean startup world, it's all about ditching what we call vanity metrics and focusing on the data that actually moves the needle.
Okay, vanity metrics. Break that down for me.
Sure. It's imagine a social media post that gets tons of engagement but doesn't actually translate into sales. Or Ries gives the example of Grocket, the education platform. They had tons of data. The numbers were all going up and to the right.
Sounds good so far.
Right.
Yeah.
But they weren't paying attention to the right numbers. They were busy, they were growing, but not necessarily making, meaningful progress.
So they fell into that trap of we're doing great because the charts point up.
Exactly. It's like driving a car and only looking at the speedometer. You might be moving fast, but are you headed in the right direction? And that's where innovation accounting comes in.
All right, innovation accounting. Sounds important, but also a little intimidating. Demystify it for me.
It's really about tying your data directly to those learning milestones, to customer behavior. So instead of just tracking downloads, for instance, you figure out what actions within your app actually show that a user is really finding value. Are they completing key tasks? Are they engaging with those core features? Those behaviors tell a story.
So it's not just about the what, it's the why behind the numbers. Like, what are we actually trying to learn, and are we using the right data to track our progress?
Now you're getting it. It's about making sure your efforts are lining up with your overall goals and that you're using data to actually validate those assumptions every step of the way.
Okay, this is starting to click. Validated learning, the build, measure, learn loop, and now innovation accounting. It's like a system for making smarter decisions, especially when faced with uncertainty.
Exactly. It's a framework for building, measuring, and learning your way to success. But even with all the right data and insights, scaling up while staying true to that lean philosophy presents a whole other set of challenges.
Right, because I'm guessing lean doesn't just mean fast or cheap when it comes to growth.
You got it. It's about maximizing value for those customers while you're minimizing waste. Waste in all its forms, time, resources, energy. And one of the most powerful concepts for scaling effectively is this, it might sound counterintuitive, but it's this practice of using small batches.
Small batches, that does sound counterintuitive. Isn't bigger is always better kind of the name of the game when you're trying to scale up?
Not necessarily. Think about Toyota. They revolutionized manufacturing by being laser focused on these small batches. It's about breaking down those large tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks, which allows you to spot and address problems faster and with, less overall impact.
So it's about quality control as much as efficiency, like finding and fixing those typos on page 1, not after the whole book has been printed.
Exactly.
I like it. But how do we actually get to the root of those problems in the first place?
Well, that's where another deceptively simple but powerful tool comes in. The 5 whys.
5 whys. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So it's basically a technique for getting to the root cause of any problem, not just slapping a Band-Aid on the symptoms. You just keep asking why. 5 times or however many times it takes. Each answer kind of leads you a little deeper into the issue until you uncover that underlying cause.
Oh, it's like that game we used to play as kids, but with real-world consequences and solutions, hopefully.
Yeah.
Like, imagine a team that's constantly missing deadlines. Instead of just saying, well, we need to work harder or whatever, you could use the 5 whys to figure out what's really going on.
Exactly. Right. Are there unclear expectations? Is there some sort of bottleneck in the workflow? By asking why enough times, you move beyond assumptions, beyond those Band-Aid solutions, and get to the heart of the matter. Ries actually highlights a great example from IMVU. They were struggling with employee training.
Okay, what happened?
So they applied the 5 whys, and what they discovered was that the problem wasn't about individual employees' ability to learn. It was actually this systemic issue about how the company valued training. They were basically trying to treat the symptom employees not being proficient instead of the root cause, which was this whole culture that didn't really prioritize continuous learning.
Wow. That's a powerful example of how digging deeper can uncover some, hidden truths and lead to much more effective solutions. This is blowing my mind. I'm already thinking about how I can apply the 5 whys to my own work, my own life. It's like a superpower for problem solving.
It really is. And the best part is these tools and principles, they're not just for startups, not in that traditional sense. They're applicable to, well, really any situation where you're trying to navigate uncertainty, solve problems, create something new.
It's about bringing that startup spirit to any challenge, whether you're launching a new product, improving a process that already exists, or even just trying to break a bad habit. It's about embracing this mindset of continuous improvement and experimentation.
Now you're speaking my language. It's about recognizing that innovation is a journey, not a destination. And it's a journey best traveled by embracing data as a compass, not a crutch.
So we've gone from building and measuring to scaling with intention. But what happens when you find yourself staring down the face of success? How do you keep that innovation engine running? How do you prevent your organization from becoming like a prisoner of its own success, because something tells me the journey doesn't just end there.
You're absolutely right. That's where things get really interesting. And it's a topic that deserves a deep dive of its own.
We're back. And I gotta say, this whole conversation has me seriously fired up. It's like we've been given this crash course in not just surviving, but actually thriving in uncertainty.
It's a critical skill set no matter what you do.
Totally. But here's the million-dollar question. What happens when that initial product, that project, actually takes off? How do you keep that innovation engine going? How do you avoid becoming a victim of your own success? Because something tells me it doesn't just end there.
You're right. It doesn't. And honestly, that's a challenge that trips up even the most successful companies.
How so?
Well, they get so laser focused on optimizing that current win that they kind of forget to look at the horizon, forget that need to adapt, to evolve.
Right. It's like they put all their eggs in one basket, and then that basket, it's like it turns into a gilded cage. How do we avoid that? How do we make sure that innovate or die mentality is actually woven into the DNA of an organization?
That's where Ries brings up this concept of managing the innovation portfolio.
Mm.
And it's a game changer. It's about thinking beyond individual products or projects and really nurturing a culture where experimentation is not a side hustle. It's the main event.
Okay. Innovation portfolio. Paint that picture for me. What does that look like in action?
Okay, so imagine this. You've got multiple projects, right?
Yeah.
And they're all in various stages of development. Some are just seedlings of ideas being tested, being refined. Others, those are gaining traction, maybe ready for more resources, more investment. And then inevitably, some need to be, gracefully retired to make space for the next wave of innovation.
So it's about constantly evaluating, experimenting, making those tough decisions about where to actually allocate resources, not just clinging to something because it worked once.
Exactly. It's about creating a dynamic system, a portfolio approach that allows you to nurture the new while you're scaling what works. But that requires a real shift in mindset, not just at the executive level, but throughout the entire organization.
So how do we actually cultivate that always be experimenting mentality? What are the key ingredients for an organization that really wants to build a culture of continuous innovation?
It starts with leadership that doesn't just tolerate failure, but embraces it as a necessary part of the process. Celebrate those aha moments, those pivots that lead to breakthroughs. Celebrate those just as much as you celebrate the big wins.
It's about creating that safe space for people to actually experiment, take risks, and learn from mistakes without fear of, being punished.
Yeah.
Because as we've seen, those mistakes, they often hold the most valuable insights.
Absolutely. It's also about building those systems and processes that actually support this kind of approach. Think cross-functional teams, rapid prototyping, constant feedback loops. Embed those lean startup principles into the very DNA of how you work.
It's about making innovation everyone's responsibility, not just one department. It's about empowering everyone to be a change maker. This has been amazing. The Lean Startup isn't just a set of tools, it's bigger than that. It's a philosophy, a way of approaching the world with curiosity, adaptability, and a healthy dose of let's figure it out energy.
It truly is. The future belongs to those who are agile, those who are willing to learn and adapt. And that's true whether you're building a billion-dollar company or navigating the ups and downs of your own career.
And that journey, it all starts with a single step, a willingness to challenge the status quo, to embrace the unknown, and to never, ever stop experimenting.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. But the conversation doesn't have to end here.
Yeah, keep that innovative energy going.
We'd love to hear how these ideas resonated with you and how you plan on applying them to your own work and life. Until next time, keep learning, keep iterating, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.